Yes.
Yeah. Good morning, viewers. Welcome again to yet another exciting talk under INSA India's Vigyan Setu webinar series. I, Dr. Chandrasekhar Sharma from IIT Hyderabad and Chair INIAS, along with my INIAS colleague, Dr. Pooja from CSIR CSIO Chandigarh, will be the moderator for today's session and will take you to the another awaited intellectual journey. Vigyan Setu webinar series was originated during COVID-19 pandemic time with an idea to provide the right information at the right time to all stakeholders by inviting the related credible people at this platform. In similar line, friends, today in this 13th webinar, we have with us Dr. Renu Sarup, Secretary, Department of Biotechnology, to talk upon science and technology for addressing societal challenges and learnings from COVID-19. I believe many young researchers impacted by COVID-19 are attending this webinar through YouTube and must be enthusiastic to get answers of their concerns. I thus request our viewers to post their questions related to the topic on YouTube chat box, which we will be taking with the speaker after the talk. Before we start the webinar today, it's our pleasure to have Professor Chandrama Saha, President INSA. May I request Professor Saha to introduce today's speaker. Ma'am.
Thank you, Chandra. First of all, let me welcome all the audiences to this very important webinar organized under the INSA banner. We started this series since the lockdown was imposed and a big challenge was thrown to science to tackle the issue of COVID-19. We have discussed many issues, but today we are going to hear of the very real concerns facing us. I am thankful to Ineas, who's the young INSA actually, and to have taken an interest and doing these webinars with us. It is with great pleasure and excitement that I introduce Dr. Renu Swarup, Secretary to Government of India, heading the Department of Biotechnology with the Ministry of Science and Technology. If I may indulge for a few moments before giving the formal introduction, I would like to say a few words about her. I have known Dr. Swarup over the decades since due to my association with DBT. And I remember from the day I knew her, I was actually very struck by her very clear mind and upbeat attitude to do new things and try new ideas. So that this was quite some time back when it was a little bit unusual, and it was very nice to have such kind of people amongst us. So she also had a deep understanding of very complicated issues in science. And when BIRAC was established, the Biotechnology Industry Research Council, she nurtured and promoted innovation research, giving a face to biotech enterprise development with a focus on startups and SMEs. To me, this is a very significant contribution. It has been a pleasure knowing Dr. Saru. Now the formal part. A PhD in genetics and plant breeding, Dr. Swarup did her postdoctoral studies at the John Innes Centre in Norwich, UK, with a Commonwealth Scholarship, and subsequently joined the Department of Biotechnology. She was actively engaged in the formulation of Biotechnology Vision of 2001, a National Biotechnology Development Strategy in 2007, and Strategy 2 during 2015 and 20 as the member secretary of the expert committee. Dr. Swarup has been closely involved in programs and activities related to women and science, which I know is very close to her heart. And the DBT scheme of biotechnology career advancement for women in science, the BioCare, was implemented by her. She was also a member of the task force on women in science constituted by the Scientific Advisory Committee to the Prime Minister. Dr. Swarup held charge of Managing Director BIRAC, as I mentioned, a public sector company incorporated by the Government of India. Through biotechnology, translational research, and industry academia partnerships, a large number of startups and a sizable number of small companies for innovation research and product development was supported, which nurtured the culture of entrepreneurship in India. A member of the National Academy of Sciences, she was awarded the Biospectrum Person of the Year award in 2012. She received the National Entrepreneurship Award in 2017. She was also awarded the P. Shield Memorial Lecture of NACI and received the World Academy of Sciences Regional Prize for Science Diplomacy. She was named the BW Most Influential Woman of India. She's a great role model. And this year, a newly discovered microbial species, Natrialba swarupi, was named in her honor. It's a dream of any scientist to have an organism named after him or her. Presently, under her leadership, the Department of Biotechnology is playing a key role in developing technological solutions for COVID-19 in India. I welcome Dr. Swarup to this program today. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Swarup.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chandrima, for this introduction. I feel very, very humbled with the introduction that you have made, but thank you so much. And first of all, it's a pleasure to be here with you all at this INSA INYAS webinar series. I have to compliment INSA, I have to compliment INYAS, the leaders sitting here, Chandrasekhar, Pooja, all of you all, and your entire team for initiating such a wonderful series. I think this really has brought out clearly what challenges pose before us. When you bring out a challenge, we look at innovative ways in trying to overcome those challenges. And I think this is an innovative manner in which we have found ways of connecting, staying connected. And believe me, I feel this virtual connections are giving us much larger connections because you can bring in more people together to be able to understand. And I think this is our response to the to the SARS-CoV-2 virus, that you as an organism have put a challenge, but we as a humanity have looked at least connecting better and connecting virtually. So I think that's really wonderful. So thank you very much. And it's really a pleasure. I welcome all the young researchers, the students who are there. And I only have one word to say, that make the best of this opportunity. I know lockdowns, I know closure of your laboratories, your semesters going off have derailed a lot of your curriculum, of your education. But use this as an opportunity of learning, an opportunity of reading, an opportunity of going deep into things which you could not do when you were so tied up with your laboratory work. So there's a lot that can be done even in this, and I hope that you have used this. Of course, now we would like to see, through the unlocks that are happening, you getting back to your routine research and other activities with a very different sense of responsibility, with a very different sense of urgency, with a very different level of energy in you, because this pandemic has given you so much of understanding and learning as to how research should move on. So thank you very much, Chandrima, and the team for having me here with you.
Thank you. I would like to pose a question to you, that this current pandemic has really taught us many lessons in many different aspects of our lives. But can you elaborate a little bit on the role of science and technology to address societal issues, how it has worked, or how we should approach it?
So, as I've just said in my introduction, this pandemic has given us, it's an unprecedented situation. None of us thought in our lifetimes we would really be struck by a pandemic coming after 100 years, and it had to be at the time when we were there. I think, but as I've said, it's important for us to see what are the opportunities we can get from this, what are the learnings we have to take it ahead. And I think one thing that has come out very clear is, in this pandemic, the focus is on science and technology. While, yes, if we have to fight this virus, the citizen responsibility is very important in terms of the appropriate behavior, which our Prime Minister has now launched, the Jan Andolan. And that is the responsibility of every citizen to see that we follow that. But it also says that till there's a cure, there's no carelessness. That's the message that goes. So, who's going to develop the cure? Who's going to bring in the prevention? How are we looking at the diagnosing the problem? Because it's early diagnosis, early cure, or prevention. All that is coming from science. And in so many years, science and technology has never been so much at the center of handling or tackling an emergency such as this. This is clearly a war which is being fought through the tools of science and technology. And I think that gives us very clearly an understanding of the importance which science and technology has in looking at and in solving societal problems. This is very clearly an understanding that it's not just societal problems of within the country, but here we are addressing global challenges. And this also brings to us very, very clearly one issue: science knows no boundaries. If today we are looking at a problem, the problem in India is the same as the problem in the US, it's the same as the problem in Vietnam, East, West, North, South, everywhere. Globally, it's a common problem. And any scientific solution coming from anywhere would then very quickly be taken up to resolve this. And you see how much has changed in these last couple of months. Today, we really do not have to struggle to ask scientists to share their data. Data sharing is because we're all collectively realizing that science and technology tools are the only solution which is going to help society. And here, this problem that has come before us is impacting each and every individual on the planet. Each and every individual in this universe is being impacted. So we do realize that what we are doing is going to impact our lives. And that is why we are so eager to share our knowledge, so that if what I have been able to do, maybe somebody can complement that knowledge and come up with a much better solution. And I think that is the spirit of science and technology for any sort of societal uh, challenge that we need. We always talk about science and technology addressing these societal challenges. Then we say, okay, where are the products? Where are the technologies? We must focus on products and technologies. And then we keep saying, from agencies like ours or in other groups, we say there has to be a fine balance between the knowledge generation, between the basic research and the translation. Now, in today's scenario, if there was no knowledge generation, if there was no basic research to understand the virus or to understand the host pathogen interaction, how would you find solutions? How would your vaccine development work? How would your diagnostic kits come out? How would you actually look at therapeutic solutions? So you see, this COVID, I think, has brought before us a very clear understanding of how science and technology, from the basic fundamental science to the product development, and we've seen all this happening in a period of 8 to 9 months. Unimaginable. From understanding, bringing out the genetic sequence of the virus to actually bringing out diagnostic kits and therapeutics. And today we have vaccines which are in the phase 3 trials. I mean, I don't think we could have ever imagined it. So it's like a relay race. I've always said that any product development is like a relay race. You have every member of that relay team is very important. And I think this learning from COVID should not stop with COVID. We don't need another pandemic to come and say, okay, let's now try out what our learnings from COVID have been. This now should become our new normal. This is the way we should change our culture. We tried to do it for so many years. We were getting better. And probably the reason why we responded to it is because the foundations were much stronger. We had industry academia talking to each other. We had state of art infrastructure. We had excellent human resource. We had global collaborations. We had built that in our science and technology policies. But I think this was a case where we could experiment all this. And I'm sure science and technology is going to overcome this virus, and this would be a wonderful learning that we'll take forward.
Early in February, you have put an action plan to WHO. So you are at the helm of the affairs, and now what are the challenges that you really faced in addressing this action plan, because you have to bring it to fruition?
So, as you said, Dr. Chandrima, I think India as a whole responded very, very early to this pandemic. And in February itself, in fact, by late January, we got all our scientists together, and collectively we started looking at what could be the problem. It wasn't declared as a pandemic at that time, and we thought that yes, it's going to be an epidemic, and we were still trying to understand that. We didn't really realize it will take the shape of a pandemic, but nevertheless, we did realize that it is something serious which needs our attention. So scientists collectively got together to understand what is it that we need to do. And yes, by February, when it was already a pandemic, declared a pandemic, by then we had our roadmap. Our roadmap brought out very clearly three or four aspects. The first aspect was we have to collectively come together, pick up whatever our existing knowledge is, and see how we can address the problem here. Looking at the experience that we had of the earlier similar situations, and we were very fortunate, did not really strike India that magnitude, whether it was H1N1 or SARS or MERS, but we did have an understanding of it. So we sort of broke it into different components. One was the understanding of the virus, looking at how we look at the testing, which included the diagnostic development, the treatment, which was obviously therapeutics, whether they were through the actually antiviral compound library screenings or from the Ayush route or phytopharma route or monoclonal antibodies, different, any therapeutic novel solutions, and most important, the prevention through vaccines. So we did put this together. We identified specifics in terms of what our R&D, what our development should be, where are we, what is our current status, how do we take that forward, and most importantly, what really are those collaborations which we need to forge to be able to move forward. What are those gaps in our infrastructure? Having put this together, and we were very pleased that when we presented it to WHO, it was very well aligned with the WHO R&D blueprint. But then came the huge task of implementing that action plan and seeing, because what was different is normally when we put up strategies and action plans, we have a 5-year period to do it or a 3-year period to do it. Here we actually didn't even have 3 months because we had to hit the ground running. We had to start delivering immediately, and especially for things like diagnostic kits. So it was a challenge. I think the challenge was getting the teams to collectively own this action plan. So it was an action plan which had to be owned by everybody who's part of that implementation team. The challenge was in making sure that these teams, then, which were across agencies, across institutions, across borders as well, are connected virtually, because by that time we had really not grasped the skills of excellent virtual connections. Now we've all got so used to it of doing everything virtually. It wasn't so. For the government, it became all the more difficult because we were really not geared up to work from home norms. For the government, everything had to be coming to the office and working. So we very quickly had to put together work from home norms. The laboratories, they face challenges in getting their scientists to actually enter laboratories and work because of the lockdowns. And then the most difficult part was when we started looking at product development, we realized we had a huge dependency on our components, on our services, which were coming from overseas. And because of that, we had supply chain disruptions. Now, how do we overcome those supply chain disruptions? So we had to then focus on indigenous manufacturing, indigenous activities. And that, I think, as I said, a challenge to anyone invokes that spirit of innovation and trying to see how we find something new. And we did it. Our whole success story of diagnostic development is before everyone. In March, when we started our testing, we had just about 500 corona positives at that time. Our number of tests was also much less. We were taking all imported kits, and we gave this challenge to our researchers and startups. And on 26th or 27th of March, the first indigenous diagnostic kit got approved by the DCGI. And from then till June, till end of May, by end of May, we were developing nearly, I think it was more than 1 lakh kits per day. So we today have a target that we have our kit development is 100% indigenous. The challenge was also in the components. Now, what do we do? So we actually put together a group of startups, industry led by ABLE, led by CCAMP in Bangalore, and of course the Department of Biotechnology. We called it NBRIC, the National Biotech Indigenous Resource Consortium. Now, what did they do? They just put together companies who develop these components for anything, even if it was primers, it was probes, uh, you name it. And we were not actually producing it for these diagnostics. We were developing it for other research activities. So we put together a demand aggregation and we said, okay, we are giving you a demand aggregation. Now you come up with these supply chains. And we've been able to achieve that. For vaccine development, we realized that there were challenges in terms of the developmental stages. Where do they do their preclinical studies? Where do they do their animal models? There were only a few institutes who would do that. Normally, it would take so long. So we connected all that through one ecosystem and said, if you come through this, you can very quickly have access to all these facilities. The regulation was always considered as something which was a challenge because it would take time. We put together in February itself, we notified a rapid regulatory response mechanism in which we said within 7 days or 3 days or 5 days, depending on the nature of the application, we will turn around the application. And you see, if we look at these products today, if we see how our vaccine development is worked, it's been a combination of all this to come together. Vaccine development, we have not compromised on any safety parameter. We have not compromised on any testing which has been done in either in the preclinical or the phase one. What we've done is we've only put parallel steps together. We've started preempting what the needs would be, and so it's a proactive, we're trying to work out and find out solutions. So I think that's why I keep saying that this has totally changed our culture of working, and I think that challenge that we faced has given us such wonderful results that we should try to see how we continue to take this forward.
Pooja, you have audience questions? Can we have them?
Thank you, Professor Saha, for setting up today's discussion, and Dr. Renu for clearly pointing out how science.
I'm just not losing your voice a little, Pooja, if you can be a little louder.
Yes, ma'am. So, taking up the discussion further, the question is the pandemic has also bring the focus on scientific social responsibility. So, does DPT have any plan to elaborate it in future?
Just repeat the last one again. I didn't get Pooja's voice very clearly.
Ma'am, regarding scientific social responsibility, so DPT plan in this direction. Can you put some light on this?
Okay, thank you. So I think all that I've explained to you just now about what we've done for the pandemic and the solution is clearly a part of the scientific social responsibility. That is, whatever science you do must really respond to the society's needs. And I think that's what it is. But scientific social responsibility goes beyond that. And I think what the key aspect is, and as I think all our viewers would be aware, the Ministry of Science and Technology, led by the Department of Science and Technology, is coming out with a policy on scientific social responsibility. What are we saying in that? In that, we are saying that the responsibility, the scientific social responsibility, does not lie only with government agencies or government laboratories or scientists who are within the government ecosystem. It lies with everyone who's engaged with the science part of it. And I think for that, for agencies like ours, it becomes our responsibility to reach out and see how we can take the importance of science to even at right up till the grassroots level. I'm glad that your webinar series is called Vigyan Setu because Dr. Chandrima Shah was responsible for starting the Science Setu programs of the Department of Biotechnology's Autonomous Institute at NII when she was the director. And I'm very pleased to inform that we have actually taken that forward and we've asked all our autonomous institutes to start the DBT AI Science Setu program. So what is that? Science Setu program is basically connecting a bridge between the research institutes and the colleges and the students. So taking the understanding of science to the students. Why do we do that? One is, of course, encouraging them to come into science because that motivates them, gives them the understanding. But we also do realize that the students are also very big ambassadors in terms of taking the message to society. First of all, Through the students, we take it to a large number of homes, because each student will take that message back to their family. Through that, we will take it to the communities they are in. And through the communities, we will reach it right up to the level where it needs to be implemented. So I think those are the responsibilities. We are now working to see how at state level, at district level, aspirational villages. We're trying to work with the aspirational villages to see how we can do it. We have a special program which the Department of Biotechnology has on the rural bioresource complexes. So we are now setting these up as rural technology clusters so that we could look at empowering the women, empowering the rural sector youth with new technologies. And I think this empowerment is important so that they can understand the importance of science and then look at connecting it to their day to day necessities, whether it's in terms of what they do for the farming aspects or the livestock or the poultry, or looking at any other products and seeing food processing and seeing how they bring in an income generation, they bring in a employment generation, and they look at clean environmental technologies which can then help in larger societal benefits. So DBT takes its societal programs very, very seriously.
Thanks, Dr. Renu, for elaborating on the scientific social responsibility aspect for all of us. Now, the next question is quite generic. There is a lot of concern among the young scientists that how this COVID-19 is going to affect the future landscape of Indian research. How is it affected the funding for research that is not COVID focused? So can you please clarify those concerns?
So yes, I do appreciate this concern, because everyone gets the feeling that all that we're doing in these last couple of months is only COVID, and not that. So I think these students have to recognize this, that this is an emergency time. So obviously attention has been focused on that. But I think I can reassure all my students and our viewers here that not a single program of the department which was being supported under the other activities which are not COVID specific has either been stalled or it has not been supported because of COVID. It's been a challenge for us to find the funding for it. On the contrary, all programs which were to close within this period of the COVID lockdown, we've actually given them extensions up till 31st March. PhD students who were completing their or were supposed to complete their PhD durations during this period up till September, which was the lockdown period, we've extended them till March. So we have understood, and that was not just for COVID specific, that was across for any other, because we did realize that research has been delayed, people have not been able to support it. The challenge is there in financial issues, because yes, we've had to put in certain financial constraints, and because of this, which we all know, it's not just India, it's globally. This financial issue has been impacted because economy has been impacted. Lockdown, we've never had this lockdown globally ever. We've never had schools and colleges closing down for so many months. We've not had all the economic shutdown totally the way it's been here. So yes, this was, but probably we just treat this as a temporary phase, and we hope that we will be able to come back to it. But I think research, there is always a way in which we prioritize this. And I think the only message I would like to give to everyone is, as we move forward, each aspect of research that you do is important. But my message to you is, as a researcher, you must prioritize your research. You must try and see, and that is where building teams becomes important. That is where collaboration becomes important. If somebody or some team has already done an work which is very exciting, you could actually work to take that work forward rather than reinventing the wheel and again starting from scratch. We can all then optimally utilize those resources that we have. And I go back to my word of a relay race. If you keep building on it, you reach much faster. If you keep going back to the start line, you'll never reach the finish line. So if you work along together, you'll move much, much faster. And I think that is really where prioritization is important. So every institute, every researcher needs to prioritize and see how you could work in teams, what has already been published, what is already there. Become team members. I think the time has gone now of single investigator projects. Even within the department, we have seen clearly a shift from single investigator to multi investigator to single institute to multi institute, and now multi agency, and now multilateral, from bilateral to multilateral, because we're all realizing that we are addressing common global problems, and that's how we best optimally utilize our finances the way they are. But yes, that's my reassurance that good research, important research, will never stop.
Thank you, Dr. Renu, for clear message and reassurance. And like women empowerment has been very close to your heart. So next question relates to that. How are funding agency working towards improving inclusiveness of women as well as young scientists in academically relevant sectors, committees in various institutions?
Okay, so I think women empowerment, empowering the young, it's first of all, it's important to see before you could actually look at them being part of committees. It's important to see that you empower them so that they actually come on a level playing field. That's more important. And I think for that, the Department of Biotechnology, DST, CSIR, all the agencies and the academies, whether it's INSA, whether it's NASI or the Academy of Sciences, all of them have been working to bring in a lot of programs that you could build leadership amongst our youth and the women scientists and researchers specifically, because they are our future leaders, they are our future scientists. So we have programs. So the women schemes, we have a lot of them. DBT has the BioCare scheme, DST has its schemes, the Kiran, and they have changed in name. So it's Kiran or Disha, I get confused, but yes, their women schemes are there. We then have the CSIR schemes. I know INSA and others also support. We have these schemes in which we bring in international, we take these international leadership programs where we connect with other groups there. What is the purpose? The purpose is we do recognize the fact that women do have career breaks. So, how do we give them, bring them back after this career break? We do recognize the fact that so many times women have to look at other than routine research activities. So, we look at other options for their career options, whether it's getting into the field of intellectual property management or science management, or looking at in ways in which they could bring in science communication, many such areas that you could connect, or technology transfers and many other such areas. So we do give them the training and the required needs for that. For the young researchers, we again have many fellowship programs that we put in. The Department of Biotechnology has DST, CSIR, we have a number of them. We have our RA schemes, we have our young researcher grants, we have our innovative young biotechnology. Similarly, DST has. The purpose is recognize their research early, give them a level of confidence, and bring them into the mainstream. Once they are into that mainstream, nothing is going to hold them back. They automatically come into committees, they automatically come onto the decision frame, because you have to understand one thing. What are these committees within these organizations? These are all committees which are actually decision bodies, either for projects or for priority setting. Now, whatever you may do, it's important to see that the people who come onto these are of high quality and high merit and high eminence. So, our effort is that we bring our women scientists and our young students and researchers to that level that they get recognized and automatically they're brought in. But yes, it's also a conscious effort to ensure that their names stay very well within that database of names that we have, so that we do not exclude them when we're moving forward. So there's a conscious effort for that. We also go around to different institutes to see. We have, in fact, the Department of Biotechnology has the Ramalinga Swami Fellowship. We have the Wellcome Trust Alliance Fellowship, India Alliance, the DBT Wellcome Trust Alliance Fellowship. This again is all for nurturing young leaders. And we do see these young leaders now playing very important roles as mentors when we take them or request them to give these mentor talks, etc. There is also another opportunity which our young researchers have, and this is through the India's membership on many of these international bodies like the HFSPO, EMBO, where we do many of these conferences. We have opportunities where they can apply for schemes, etc. The whole purpose is then that you're not just within the national community, but you get an exposure to the global community. You get recognized in that international fora. So I think all that effort that we make now, it's important for the young researchers to come forward. We have membership, but many a times I'm very disappointed to see we do not have sufficient applications from India. Then we say not many Indians have been awarded, but the number of applications that went in was so less. So even if out of those less applications you get one person awarded, just look at the potential we have. Why don't more researchers come forward and put in the applications into these international competitive grant systems? It helps you to increase your own competence level because you get into a larger competitive framework to understand what your challenges are. So what if your application is not accepted the first time? Come back with a learning, go back again the second time. That's all what science is. In your research laboratory, if your experiment does not do well, what do? You don't change your PhD topic. You always go back to the drawing board and say, what did I do wrong in this experiment? How can I make it do better? And that's how you finally achieve success in what you've done. So that's really what the spirit has to be. And we do nurture that. I would love to see more and more young researchers becoming part of this ecosystem.
Thank you, Dr. Rano, for encouraging the young scientists. So in the similar context, but little different, like in terms of, especially for the women scientists, we know that society has many elements that are interrelated. Life and work are also interrelated. So you have been involved in several initiatives, including like BioCare, which you are mentioning. So apart from the opportunities in terms of fellowships and programs, what changes do you feel that are needed to enable our young women scientists to attain better academic productivity?
So I think, as I said right now, it is important that we try to see how we build leadership right from the beginning. And I think that is clearly something that we need to focus on much more. And I would urge academies like yours, I would urge INSA, INIAS, all other academies to help bring in these leadership programs very early on into the career of a young scientist. Because leadership qualities are there, they have inherent leadership qualities. It's only helping them to recognize what their leadership qualities are. Many a times, our young scientists, our women scientists, you need to channelize them on the right path. And I think that what you need to channelize them on the right path is what we need to do to help them. The government has taken a lot of initiatives, whether it's in terms of the maternity leave, giving a larger maternity leave, longer maternity leave, uh, bringing in the recommendations that we should have creche services available. There have been also looking at the government itself, looks at allowing in cases of transferable jobs, seeing that if possible, both the husband and wife can be posted in similar cities or locations to facilitate. So these sort of provisions do exist, which people look at. But I think beyond that, so one is the ecosystem, making the environment, making the work environment, bringing in the gender diversity issue, bringing in that sensitivity to issues related to gender diversity in the work ecosystem, in working workplaces. And the government may be doing it, but I think we need to do it at a larger system. We need to bring in the private groups also. We need to take it into a much larger bit. And I think that is important, making them feel that they are not a different gender totally. They're part of that ecosystem. So we're not sort of nurturing a different track together. It's one larger ecosystem of which women are an integral part. So I think that realization is important. But then with that, it's very important for us to ensure that we bring in these leadership development programs. And I think all of us need to play an important role to do more of it. We are doing it, but I think we need to sort of expand that much more and bring in many more such. And Dr. Chandrima Shah knows, I've been talking to her. We really need to see how we build within the country one such platform which helps build leadership for young women scientists, and I would say also for the young researchers.
Thank you, Dr. Renu Suru, for addressing the issue related to the women scientists and young scientists. Now, moving ahead for the COVID-19 aspect, experts say that it is going, the world is going to see second wave of COVID-19. So, what is your views on the availability of vaccine, and what is the plan of distribution to the common public if such expectations are there in near future?
So that's a question that interests everybody these days, including the media. So I'm sure all of you all from the television get a lot of this information anyway. But yes, I think it's difficult to say what wave is going to come for COVID, whether it's going to be a second wave. But I think I will go back to what I started with and what I brought to you all, the message which even the Honorable Prime Minister has put in on 8th of this month as a Jan Andolan. I think the biggest contribution to controlling this virus is going to come from the people themselves. We have to follow those principles of wearing masks, the hygiene, washing your hands, social distancing. And I think if we continue to do that, there will be ways in which we could overcome it. I mean, we've seen spikes happening after festivals, and we are all approaching the festival season. So we're all very worried. The health ministry has been issuing a lot of guidance notes on that, on how each one needs to be worried and careful on how we behave, what our behavior should be. But having said that, I think the vaccine development work is moving well. India has, in fact, India has always been known for its vaccine development and manufacture. So, as always, all the immunization program, India has always been, 60% of the global immunization program vaccines come from India. That's what the capacities of our Indian manufacturers are. For COVID, we have more than 30 candidates which are currently being looked at by researchers, both in the academic institute and in industry, and they're trying to work on taking it ahead. Number of them are in advanced stages, and I'm sure all of you all have that because that's every day in the news. You have about the phase 3 trial of the AstraZeneca, one being done by Serum. We have Bharat and Zydus, which is into phase 2 right now. Hopefully, should get into phase 3 soon. We have another 4 or 5 other candidates which are in advanced stages of preclinical. I think what is interesting is that in India, what we are supporting and what our developers are working on are a varied number of platforms. Whether it's the mRNA platform, whether it's the DNA vaccine, whether it's the receptor binding protein. So I think each of the platforms is being tried out in India. We have Bharat now working on another, which is the existing rabies platform. We have so a large number of them in different stages. But I think we are confident, and the government has actually set up these committees which are looking at it. We have this being monitored and reviewed at the highest level. Our senior leadership is totally connected with it, whether it's our prime minister, our minister, everybody into it. And we're all working to ensure that as soon as the vaccine is ready, it clears all its regulatory, whatever is going to be required from the regulatory data approvals. It should be ready, and I'm sure the day the vaccine gets ready, the vaccine distribution, immunization procedures within the government are already being prepared to ensure that the day the vaccine is ready, our immunization can begin.
Thank you, Dr. Suru, for this information. Bringing back your attention on the issues related to the COVID-19 on the scientific research, what do you think about some effective and immediate measures for the scientific community, especially when we know that all the research projects, they are halted, students are not going to the lab. So Can we expect some announcement in terms of some financial support, as you said, for the PhD students? But apart from the PhD students, like for example, project extension or project extension with some contingency measures. So can we expect some announcement from the funding agency in that regard?
So I did mention that the Department of Biotechnology took this step a couple of months back, and we have whichever projects have come to us, which were because of the lockdown or because of this, they've had certain problems, and their closure date was there for September. We have taken that decision to extend them up till March or give them 6 months extension to be able to complete their research work. We've already taken those decisions for whichever projects were either completing or about to complete. So that will take care of their existing budgetary requirements. For the students, I've already said we've already put out those announcements. It was important for us to look at extending the dates of some of the examinations for our MSc and our PhD programs, which we did, and we just conducted that exam, I think, a week or two back. Similarly, some of our other schemes in terms of our apprenticeship training program, etc., we delayed the advertisements and now we are putting them out, recognizing the fact that these opportunities will not be available to them to start the apprenticeship till um, next couple of months. So we have taken care of all that. So whatever implications COVID is going to have in terms of the research, we've tried to look at it. Of course, many of them proactively within the department, also addressing to the specific requests which came in from the investigators.
Uh, right, ma'am. So moving ahead, there is a question from a viewer from Krishnan. He's saying like during phase 2 and 3 trial, even if one of the volunteer gets affected, the trial is stopped for few days. Is there any other way or procedure to proceed further?
You have to realize that a vaccine trial is actually a human trial, and you're looking at injecting a vaccine into a human. And I think our drug regulator takes all that into account before they issue any such guidance in terms of the stopping of the trial again is in the interest of humanity. So I think the guidance that has been put out we is all very carefully, we have looked into all these aspects, and this is not an arbitrary decision that is taken. It's taken by a group of experts, and every trial has its own data safety monitoring board, the DSMB. They look at it, they look at the data, they understand what the issues are, and they take a decision when it has to be trial. The regulator doesn't say that stop it at this point of time. The decision to stop the trial, halt the trial, or delay it for some time is based on the data which is coming. So I think that's part of the process, and we should not really get worried. Um, every vaccine that comes out with this sort of a trial system. The only difference is that this time eagerly everybody is waiting for the vaccine to come out, and that is why a day to day vaccine development is being tracked by everybody. So I would only reassure that our effort is to see it moves with the speed that it has to without compromising on many aspects of safety, efficacy, which is going to be important for the human beings.
Right, ma'am. Now I can request Professor Saha to carry the discussion forward.
Yes, I had a question about, I wanted to put this in your mind that there are a lot of PhD students who have completed their PhDs. They cannot go abroad, so they are floating around. Then there are people who have come back from abroad and they are also floating around. So there is this large population of skilled personnel who we have. Is it possible to put them in different institutes temporarily for a year or 2 years to sort of rehabilitate them for their next step, or even that will add to the kind of manpower we need to take this COVID-19 research as well as the diagnostics forward?
So important issue, Chandrama, that you've said. One is our own national and other students, and the existing fellowship opportunities obviously are limited, which if we need to accommodate many of them, we'll have to expand. So there are two or three ways in which we could look at it. One is, of course, we are also looking at expanding our own young researcher fellowship grants. So bringing in newer opportunities in which we could take it forward. The second is, I think each of our institutes has now been working on developing what they call guidelines for facilitating or bringing in CSR funding for research, because now the government has actually put out a guidance saying the corporate social responsibility funding which industry bodies do can actually be taken for R&D, which they do along with government institutes. The CSR funding will be again another opportunity which could be for human resource building, human resource development. And so I think that is something which our institutes could possibly look at, bringing in CSR funding for taking up some activities, research activities, which will give opportunities to these young researchers. We are also wanting to set up these centers on new and emerging technologies, which again will give opportunities to young researchers to take forward. So it's not just COVID, it's even beyond COVID. Because as I said, today it's COVID which has struck us, but there may be many other more such challenges, health challenges, food security challenges, clean energy, environment challenges, which will come before us, and we have to be geared up for it. So yes, we are trying to work with institutes to find innovative ways, and the industry also. So the industry currently takes on human resource, but if you see the biotech industry, I think with the COVID, they've obviously got a much larger, their activities have increased. So that should be an opportunity for them to take on more human resource, qualified human resource. A lot of startups have come into manufacturing now with this COVID issue, etc. They would need again qualified human resource. So I think key is what we could do in a collaborative manner. We may not be able to give job opportunities or funding to a very, very large group because there will be limitations. Maybe we could look at building their capacities and their skills and making them employable, bringing in those employable qualities. So we have to map and see what are those employment opportunities which exist and how do we make them employable. So the department has already started doing that. We have started what we call skill Vigyan biotech centers. And that we have set up right now in 9 states. We are wanting to expand it to all the states within the next 1 year, where they focus on 4 aspects of the training. One is the faculty training. So you're retraining them, giving them better skills to take it forward. Looking at young student training programs, giving them opportunities in ways of which they could actually look at entrepreneurial ventures. We then have entrepreneurial training activities, how we connect with them. And these skill Vigyan centers are actually also being connected to our incubators that we have across the country, so that not just the research, but entrepreneurial opportunities also become available. That's a huge self-employment opportunity, which sometimes we do not recognize the value of. And I think we will have to look at a mix of all these opportunities for young researchers.
Thank you. One very important question, I think, is that we are so overwhelmed by this COVID-19 situation that we are not actually paying attention to the environment, the climate change. And it's sort of staring at our face, and there will be a point maybe students will have to go to school with oxygen cylinders. So, I mean, this is something that we are actually not paying enough attention at the moment. Maybe it is not possible. Maybe we do not have those resources, or looking at that kind of aspect. I'm not saying that because of the climate change this corona happened, but the climate change is something that we will face in the very near future, and we are already facing actually. So, how much stress are you giving to this climate change issues, along with the corona, of course?
So this is important, Chandrima. So as I said, uh, we don't need a pandemic to make us aware of what the crisis is, and then we do a literally a firefighting and a war fighting, and on war footing we try to resolve it. Climate change is something which has been in our knowledge for very, very long. And you very rightly said this is slowly happening, but we will eventually reach a stage where it will become a war cry, sort of a situation for us, where we will have to tackle it. And then tackling it, it may be already out of control for us. So the department, in fact, the government, we have Ministry of Environment, we have Department of Science and Technology, CSIR, many agencies, and DBT, of course. We are looking at clean energy and environment as one of our priority areas. The Department of Biotechnology has been steering the Government of India's membership and partnership with the Mission Innovation, which in fact our Prime Minister, along with at the time of the COP in 2015, had launched this in Paris, and now we have over 23 countries which are a part of it. The commitment that we gave in that was that we will double our investments in the clean energy environment R&D. We did that. Not only doubled in the last 5 years, we've gone much more than double. We've started a number of national and international programs. We are now starting a major mission on hydrogen. So you're looking at alternates to, bring in the cleaner environment, cleaner technology. We have also launched a major program on waste to value. And the Department of Biotechnology has many such programs. We have one at Barapulla right here. We had earlier two projects, and just now recently on the 8th of October, our minister, along with the LG of Delhi, launched the clean energy, clean tech demonstration park over there, where we are going to have 5 other technologies demonstrated by startups in different parts of the world country to be demonstrated on this site, just as a demo. We've also worked with local bodies in 5 states where they've taken technologies which some of our research institutes and startups developed at small scale to take it up for pilot scale demonstration at 5-ton, 10-ton, 20-ton scale. The purpose is if we demonstrate these technologies successfully, they could be picked up and taken up commercially. So I think the purpose is, one is looking at bringing in the awareness so that we have researchers who start looking at solutions for these challenges. The second is whatever solutions we have, scaling them up so that they become available to humanity. And the third most important is connecting it internationally as well, so that we could look at, like we're doing for COVID, we're looking at solutions from anywhere in the world coming in, but collectively taking them forward. So I think that really is what our response should be to the climate change.
Okay. So, Pooja, I have one more question actually. Can I?
Yeah, please.
So, with this COVID-19 situation, we have come to a realization that lay people, are talking about herd immunity. They're talking about flattening of the curve. So people have actually got interested because it hit so hard. And we should take this opportunity to, keep on informing the public about different issues that I'm talking about, climate change and all. But still on the roads you see people without masks. I mean, I'm sure they have other priorities to eat a daily meal or something like that. How this complex situation, such a huge country, this complex situation, how do we address, how do we infuse into people that teach somebody else also, along with yourself, you teach somebody else also these kind of issues.
So I think this is all the power of communication. And somewhere, I think science and scientists have to bring in that power of communication, which currently is not to the level in which we need to take it forward. Um a lot of the science that we do, a lot of the challenges that are being, see, why are people so keenly following the COVID issue? Because it's impacting them. Each one of them is getting impacted with COVID. So, what is it that they need to do? They need to see how COVID, when it is impacting them, Similarly, we have to tell them that other things are also impacting them. The pani ka bottle. So I think that is really the challenge that we need to take to people. Communicate better. Now, this whole aspect that we've had of the Jan Andolan. Now, what is the Jan Andolan? We are only trying to take to people. Just a minute. We're only trying to take to the people what is it that they need to do. So I think somewhere we need to bring communication into the center of all that we do and use different media of communication. What we do in science, many times the scientists very rightly feel, I'm doing my science. It's not my job to go and take it to the people. Very correct. If you're going to ask the scientist to take his or her research to the people, when is that scientist going to work in the laboratory? So you need to have teams. And that brings us to the importance of teams. And every good team must have people from diverse backgrounds. You need to have people who have communication skills. That's a separate profession. You need to have people who are communicators, who can actually take this communication. And there's different type of communication. You need to communicate to people, and your scientific communication as a science communication to global communities of the quality of science that you do is one aspect of it. Science for the society is a second aspect of it, where you need to engage with people and tell them what the importance is. There is also a level of communication where you need to engage with people at the grassroots for them to take ownership of this problem and then become responsible to solving it, like they've done for COVID. So I think unless and until the climate change is also driven in a similar manner, where people realize that today you're being asked to wear masks because you're going to get infected with it, and you see the infection happening within 3 days or 5 days, and you see the no response, but the environmental pollution is also impacting you. It's a slow killer. You had doctors going on to the television and showing them the images of the lung to show where there were blocks, but it didn't really go to people in that manner. You have to tell them that soon you will always be wearing a mask, because you'll have corona may go and then the pollution may come, and then you'll still need to wear the mask for the pollution unless you do something about it now. So I think these communication skills, and again, my main point is, I think academies play a very big role in this. And I think you should really work with all the agencies to build these communication strategies and see how we can take the importance of these challenges to the community.
Thank you, Dr. Renu Swarup, for very informative session and clearly bringing out the role of science communication and how science and technology are the part of same coin and they have to work hand to hand. So at the end, on behalf of INSA and INIA's colleagues and on my behalf, I wish to thank you for sparing your valuable time for this informative session. We believe that our viewers, mainly the young researchers who are watching the session, they must be benefited with this session today. So for information to our viewers, we will meet again in November at the same platform with another exciting topic and eminent speaker. You can follow this discussion and further updates on our official YouTube channel. Until then, take care. Goodbye. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Very much, Renu.